It's great to be here with this amazing panel. Again, we would like to primarily concentrate today while we are going to be talking about evolution of visual effects, primarily the digital effects which we use in films and television series, and obviously now OTTs and stuff like that. So which again, because it's such a vast area, so we would like to restrict that to be in the last decade or so, right? Because otherwise it could extend to a large portion. This collective experience of this panel itself is span like 20 years, and on average we are talking about 100 years of experience here. So with the time in hand, so we would be restricting for what has been the evolution for the last, say, 10 years or so. So in the 10 years, as we know, there is quite a bit of change, right? So when the way the movies has been brought to life by visual effects were added for a great storytelling, which started with primarily adding the invisible effects to all the way bringing creatures and characters from different worlds into films. And obviously the line started blurred real quick with the OTT, introduction of OTTs and television series. And the biggest change has been now the complexities are only becoming higher and higher, and obviously the budgets are becoming smaller and smaller. So that's the challenge that we as an industry face. So the topic is going to be mostly the questions are around with the panel. The discussion is going to be around all those. Hope you guys will have time around it. So I just thought we could probably start with a quick reel that we put together from the studio where I come from, MPC, which is brand new and which has a lot of details that you would probably understand how a television episodic OTT streaming content and how a large scale tentpole feature film, how all these has been evolved in the recent past, and how, again, like I said, how the line is getting blurred. Could we just hit the reel, please?
That they are. They're giving us a real show today.
Wu-Tang is in the building, baby.
Look, Simban. Everything the light touches is our kingdom.
in your hand. Welcome to the world, Jeff.
Hey, this was really fun, but we actually gotta get going.
All right. Thank you. So that's clearly, again, an example of how the line is blurred. The most of the work, what you saw, predominantly talks about the content is becoming highly demanding and super engaging and high complex, but the timelines are continue to shrink, and then the budgets are continue to shrink. And that's where the evolution of technology, the evolution of AI, the evolution of all of that is helping and going to be continue to help. Should we hit the firebolt drill now, or do you have? Okay, maybe in between. All right. So I know, Saraswati, you have another engagement. He's been double booked. He's busy. So we would probably start questions. Again, I want to pretty much start with this. I know, Saraswati, you've been Vani. Should I call that? Yeah. So you've been doing this for many years now, and obviously your career is transforming to be a visual effects studio manager, running a studio global on a global scale, and of course now a content creator for various forms and stuff. So now, how do you see this? One of the challenges has been the demand is continue to increase, and where we are all trying to have more time, because in our industry, time is money, right? So the more time we have, obviously, the better product we can produce and stuff like that. So how do you see that in the last decade or so, where things have become a lot more demanding? At the same time, how do you think that we are overcoming the challenges of the restricted time and money?
Hello. Hello, everyone. Everyone awake? Yes, you're not too sleepy, I hope. All right. Thank you so much for this wonderful panel. First of all, I think human beings, which is all of us in this room, other than a few aliens that are probably floating around, are extremely valuable. What each one of us brings is so explicit and unique that that cannot be replicated, no matter what. You know, ideas, and the talent, you know, someone was asking me today, what do you think about the new talent? And I said, what is there to think about it? They have so much at their fingertips, which I did not have maybe 20 years ago. You know, I can access YouTube videos, I can attend master classes, I can read about everything. I personally believe that the human talent that India is producing and creating is one of the most fastest growing talent in the entire world. There's just no looking back. And it is on the last 20, 30 years that all these younger generation are standing on. So they have a lot more to produce and a lot more to give back. The demand is rising, whether AI or no AI. I think content is going to be king. It may be these really big visual effects films that we see, which are the 10th fold films, which we worked on, many of them when I was at Rhythm and Hues, are only multiplying. You know, I left Rhythm about almost 10 years ago, 2013, this is 2023. So if I look back even 10 years ago, what I did with Rhythm and Hues, things have become bigger and magnanimous, right? I think the time has come that the global talent starts valuing itself. You know, they're being underbid and underpaid, and I think that needs to really stop. So, and that's for the students and for the professionals to speak up and say, this is the value that we bring in the economy of the global world. It's not just about growing and becoming big companies, but it's also really taking care of the employees. So the freelance model has been a fantastic model for a lot of people. And I think that's going to continue to explode, which we have seen for the last 20, 30 years in the US. So from my point of view, I think India needs to become more creative. I personally believe that we have been one of the top people in the world producing work for the rest of the world. But I think it is extremely, extremely important that India becomes creative and starts doing its own short form, long form, doesn't matter what form, but start creating and start producing yourselves and start owning your own IP. We still are so tiny when it comes to IP generation, and I think that's the change. I feel so proud that I'm a South Indian and I'm from India. When Rajamouli sir had come to Los Angeles and we went to watch his film, that concept that it's his, it's an Indian film that's traveled and has touched everybody's hearts. And I think each one of the professionals that are sitting here and the students that are sitting here, I highly demand from them that tell your own stories, make India a creative power. We've been a service power for a long time. Let's make it into a creative power.
Fantastic. So I know, Rajeev, you are a producer, production specialist. Yeah.
I'll come back.
Yeah, sure. So how do you see this? How the evolution of the last decade has been? You've been producing for many years now, from your Prana days and whatnot. So how it has changed for you in the recent past? Do you agree the demand is becoming higher and higher, and the quality expectation is becoming higher, obviously? Everybody wants to make a tentpole. Everybody wants to have, the huge production value when they invest in visual effects and stuff like that. But then do you think there is enough time has been given, there is enough money has been invested, and how does that is working out to you as a producer?
So, definitely, as I see, the demand of the content has increased and it has evolved. And of course, it's not new that you hear that the quality has to be at par. And when the project starts, the reference also starts like you have to have a Western film that gets attached to a domestic film which doesn't apparently has a budget right from day one. And where the release is already set, so you really don't know if the Western example has to be looked, or if it has to be looked, what kind of planning needs to be there. Half of the journey starts, probably I would say that it's always a discussion where you have to have a understanding or a kind of agreement that this is possible, this is not possible, or this can be done, or this can't be done. When it happens, then the production becomes little effective. Unfortunately, I mean, the way I see it, especially when it comes to the Bollywood and when it comes to the domestic market, there's still that needs to be organized. There's still that needs to be looked from a perspective that India has evolved. There's a lot of talent that we can always look at it. And instead of crunching on the timelines and on the numbers, it's more the focus that is required is on the pre-production, how you get to the right planning, and how you get the right players on board, specifically when it comes to the quality. There's always, see, project have to be economics. It purely depends, like how economically you're making the project viable. So it is very important for all being on our side, like when we come as a producer to the project, that what kind of model are we proposing to the producer, so in order to get the right understanding and get the right players with the right budget attached, and at the same time supervise the quality so that it's not dropping anywhere.
Interesting. Tarun, do you want to add anything to that?
So yeah, like what Rajeev said, it's always a discussion. But the good thing that we've seen over the past few years is a lot of Indian movies have hit that benchmark where definitely there are a few misses and there are a few hits, but the ones that have hit the benchmark, they've just taken the Indian scene to a whole new level. There's always like that one movie that just takes it to the next level, and then you say that, oh, now this is our benchmark, right? Like we did probably with RRR, with Brahmastra. So yeah, so now that's the new benchmark to beat. And if you see over the past 10 years, these benchmarks used to probably be hit once in every 3 years, 4 years, but now it's become more frequent, right? You see like a one-up being done every 1 year, maybe two. So that frequency is reducing, and that goes to say that the talent pool has increased, and the good thing is that the technology is also going hand in hand with that, and it is kind of pushing things forward for us.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the good news is there is the general awareness is becoming better.
Correct.
People would like to see the product to be better in the sense, okay, we needed to give enough pre-production time, enough planning that goes everywhere, whether it is Hollywood, Bollywood. The more planning you have, the more better pre-production time you have. Obviously, you'll have a better product in the end with that. So that is a positive outtake for all of us. There is better awareness coming in. So just in coming to you, right? I know you've been playing many roles. Like you started as an animator, and obviously now from a lot of visual effects. I went into your LinkedIn and saw some credentials that you have garnered, and obviously now into games. But looking at it, so from your history of visual effects in being in this industry for long association, what is it that probably one significant disruptive change that you've noticed in your last, say, in the 10 years, and how that is attributed to where we are in a global VFX arena?
Well, after this many years, there's lots of moments, but if we just focus it on the last decade, then I guess what I would sort of point out is there was a show I worked on called Star Trek Picard, and there's one point where a board queen, she plugs herself into the ship. Now, the way this kind of stuff happened back in the day, if you lock the camera off, right? You pull the actor out, you shoot the background, you have a clean plate, right? You bring them in, and then you make the adjustments. Excuse me. Now, in this case, she lifts up. Of course, she has legs, so they paint all that stuff out, but the camera moves the whole time. So for me, just as a VFX geek, just to look at this and just so amazed, I'm not sure how they're pulling this off now, because there's no clean plate shot anywhere, but they're still able to replicate and clean and make it perfect, and this is television. To me, that's the most fascinating thing, is the fact that it's no longer, well, you look at the effects and you kind of go, ooh, that's not too good, but it's television, so we'll let it slide. Now, the line between television and film is just virtually blurred. So for me, that's what's the most amazing thing, is just the fact that the quality level and the versatility has gotten to such a level that there's nothing that people can't shoot that we can't bring to the finished product, which is also terrible at the same time, because they do so many really bad things and they just go, well, we could fix it in post.
Yeah. So that's a thing, right, Lou? So again, like I said, so at MPC, we do look at all the spectrum of visual complexity. To just in your point, the visual complexity has gone so high, everybody's expectation, again, the production value which needs to be really high. I don't know whether in the reel you guys have seen the dinosaurs, whatever that we're bringing in, that is for Apple TV, right? But then the kind of emphasis in close proximity working with BBC, that was a lot more painstakingly harder than working on a Marvel movie, right? Because sometimes, you cannot write it down, that's because a TV or a OTT anymore, because the demand is so high, and of course the expectation is so large. Is this the right time, Tarun? Should we hit your reel, and then I have a specific question for you? Can we play the Firebolt reel, please? Yeah, the reel, and then you can turn the lights down. Awesome. That's a cool digi-double of yourself. Yes. All right. So, Tarun, the question here is, again, this is a great testament of how technology evolved, right? This used to be, I'm sure, Dustin, you would agree, this used to be pretty hard, getting the digi-double to look like the one, the uncanny valley. We still, there is a question around it, but I think we are inching towards that. So, again, with the again, looking at the ever-growing demand, what do you think, or how do you think the technological innovation could help bridge the gap?
So like what we've seen basically, like with the use of digi-doubles, not only in human digi-doubles, but also in sets and everything, it's enhanced your VFX experience, right? It has given a lot more freedom to the VFX people to create camera moves, stunts, and collisions, blasts in a way that traditionally we would not be able to do a few years back. So that's how it's evolving, and we don't know where AI is going, but maybe with some AI it will even become better. But yeah, right now with digi-doubles and motion capture, I think we are right there where, like you said earlier, there's nothing that we cannot pull off.
Yeah, interesting. Justin, according to you, where do you think the next big technological leap is going to come from?
Well, just speaking from an animator point of view, I think the one area that we still have growth in is facial performance. I think that is the one area where we still find ourselves in the uncanny valley more times than not. And it's just, I hate to say this, but as an animator myself, you cannot deliver a human performance, I think, as an animator, because there's so much going on there and so much nuance. Now, I mean, the facial capture tools that we have now are exponentially better than what we've had in the past, but I still think there's room for growth there because, I mean, what we saw just now is fantastic. So between that and mocap performance, I think you can replicate humans, but when it comes to terms of actual nuanced facial performance, I think that's the one area that we still have plenty of room to grow.
Absolutely, agree. You have any opinion around it? Do you think a place like your studio, are you guys investing anything on a very specific tech innovation?
Well, to be honest, we always have internal discussions where there are heavy action sequences that need to take place, or there are heavy projects that needs to be mounted. But it always comes back that what kind of technology can be supporting this, who can deliver this, what kind of right players are there, because until and unless you have seen some visible examples, from a producer's point of view, it always comes back to the confidence of delivering, whether this will happen or this won't happen. So that's a scary position always when you have to balance it economically. And of course, creative barriers have always been pushed, and there are a lot of experiments that are happening at different parts of the country. But when it comes to the realistic output that needs to be produced and that needs to be delivered within certain time and certain numbers, then it always becomes a kind of a discussion that whether to go with the technology at this point of time or let the first mover be there and then we see the output and then we deliver. So a classic example have been a lot of recent films that have came out from the Bollywood, which has a number of shots as VFX, complex shots, and a good budget, but still the output was not that great. So that keeps you like still into that dilemma whether the technology was wrong or the resource was wrong or whether the planning was wrong. So it just kinds you put like a step back, and where again you go like push your boundaries. Okay, now is not the time. So from a very, I mean, I'm saying that from a very producer's point of view.
Correct. Yeah, completely agree. Again, you can have a tool, but as long as you have to use the right tool in the right time with the right people's hand, right? So yeah, that makes sense. So again, I just wanted to slightly switch gears around the talent market. I know in the recent past that, again, starting from the pandemic, which is a very difficult time for everyone across the globe, but now the current, especially in the Hollywood visual effects arena, which is being deeply hurt by the strikes and whatnot. So what do we think the talent demand post, right? This is again a very, I would call this the lull period. Hopefully we have a brighter days ahead, because that's the thing we can all look forward to. But how do we think that the talent demand globally, just since that's your thing, so how does that's going to be, say, 8 months from now, hopefully the strikes, the actors' strikes would be called off, say, in the next month or so, and then obviously then the shoots would begin, and then the plates would turn around. Post-production would probably pick up by mid next year. So how do you see, especially the US market and the talent market, or the Western Hemisphere, how does that look? Because probably we will keep the Indian outlook with a few of these guys, but how do you see it?
I hate to say this, but I kind of take a slightly pessimistic view. Personally speaking, because I had a job that went away with the strike as well, and I don't know if this particular company is going to return. And the point is because there's so many opportunities now, right? There's Canada, there's all these other places that are offering incentives that financially make sense for companies to not do the work in the U.S. There will always be work in the U.S. for whatever reason, but I think the pond continues to shrink, you know, which, I mean, is fantastic news for anyone that's not in the U.S., you know. Yeah. But I think that the work is definitely going to return, but how much of that is going to return specifically to the U.S. versus additional markets, that's something that I'm not too sure about.
Okay. That's sad truth. Yes, US did continue to shrink. But say from a industry person, like if you see someone is in Europe or someone aspiring an artist in India, how do one should use the period of lull to prepare for the future?
Gotcha. Well, in my case, you know, the whole reason I'm here for both conventions, because I also went into game development. I did that specifically because back in 2004, the project I was on suddenly was outsourced in the middle of a season. And that's when I realized that I needed a plan B, you know. So I think not just working at what you do, but also considering what else is out there to shift gears. You know, I mean, I think a perfect example is, if I can delve into this just a second, Phil Tippett, who is one of the greatest stop motion animation animators of all time, went into a screening when they had a secret a VFX version of a T-Rex for Jurassic Park, and he knew instantly that his job was gone. He devoted his entire life to that, right? But then rather than just throwing up his hands and walking away, he shifted and embraced the VFX and started combining his skill sets with the VFX that's out there. So I think the key thing is just keep working with what is out there, expand and learn other abilities. The more you know, the more versatile you can be, and the better your chances of getting brought on to other projects.
Yeah, so the key thing for the lots of aspiring people here and then professionals is the industry will go, there is going to be the sine wave, right? There is going to be, sometimes you have extremely busy, there are times that where you are not going to be, is how do you prepare yourself for those bad days, right? How do you keep an alternative, not an entire career, but then alternative area of expertise where you can continue to learn so that you would be able to fill those gaps. Tarun, do you want to add anything to it? What is additional?
I completely agree that today artists need to be like multifaceted and need to know more than one skill, because just knowing one skill is not making the cut anymore. And if you just stick to one skill, then you're always going to be on the top of the list that's going to get cut. And the key today is to be inquisitive and to keep learning, keep evolving, because technology is moving much faster than what it used to move 10 years back. So what say you learn in an institute today, or what you started doing, is not going to be the same 2 years later. It's evolved, and it's a different technique. Maybe the concept is still the same, but the way you do it, the tools you use are going to be totally different. They're going to be faster, they're going to be better. And so you basically need to have the aptitude to leverage those tools and take your work to a higher level.
Okay, awesome. I think with the time, the clock already says 0, but I still hope we have some time. So I think it will be a sin, right, in any of these conferences or these kind of on a panel if you don't talk about the artificial intelligence and machine learning topics. since we have the mix of creative and producers and production folks here, how do you think, right? Or rather, we all know, there is going to be an impact. There is going to be some disruptions. It is not about whether it's going to happen or not. It is about when is it going to happen or not. So, according to your views, how do one should prepare and again embrace the change, the Tim Tippett example? So you have to embrace the change which is coming towards us, but how do you go about the change? Because we have a lot of young people who would be, who have a lot of hope that they would be all growing into this industry. They're coming from schools and stuff like that. So what would be your few words to them if you needed to give them how one should go about it?
I would still say be multi-talented, and I don't think AI is there yet. And even when it comes, maybe we don't know when it's coming, maybe in a year, maybe in 3. But there's going to be more of the repetitive tasks that probably go away, like roto or object tracking, something like that. But there's always in films, and there's always going to require like a human touch. That is not going to go away. So as long as you keep yourself updated and you're able to cater to that part of techniques, then I think you're good. Yeah.
Okay. Dustin, you have any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, back in the day, it was the advent of mocap. It was like once that came along, all of my fellow animators and I just said, that's it, we're done, we quit, right, we're out.
Keyframe to motion capture?
Exactly. But what we've quickly discovered is that they go, well, that's great, but the arm goes like this, not like this. So suddenly I had a job, right? I think the same thing with AI. I mean, AI is fantastic at this point with broad brush kind of concepts, right? But that's the same kind of thing, because if you produce a video animation or anything like that, and then you go, that's great, but I want him to jump this way instead, then it falls apart. At this point, AI is terrible at iterating. And I think that, personally, my guess is that it's probably going to be a decade away before it can refine well. And in that meantime, there's always going to be the human intervention that makes it work. I mean, it'd be one of those things that they could try and do, and they finally just, what, never mind, just let them animate it. So I still think there's plenty of time, and I still think even after AI improves, I still think there'll be necessary to have the human intervention to try and tweak it and get it perfect.
Okay, that's great. Rajeev, you have any take on AI, ML?
Yeah, I mean, not specific to the AI, but like what Vani said and what Justin just said, there is a lot of talent that is already available, which if you look at 10 years back, there was always a need of training, at least the basic training to get into the VFX. But fortunately, the students, the teenagers, right now are smart enough to use the smart tools, and if probably they want to shape up the career, so there's nothing that they are not aware of. So I would say that it's a right blend of technology and the skill set that will always keep evolving and that will always keep you going, no matter what the technology comes in. I think that's always going to be the part of VFX, and as an asset, one should use it.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. Do we have any questions from the audiences? Yes, please. Can you please pass on this mic to you?
Yeah, so in the beginning, we are saying on one side that the demand is increasing, and on the other side, we are saying the budget is decreasing. So what I'm trying to understand is the VFX industry, supposed to give more amount of output, but we might not grow more in terms of the value terms. I mean, are we expected to get more efficient with AI, or would the industry would still grow with AI if I see the VFX thing? Because we are saying the budget is decreasing, but the output is, the demand is still increasing. And also one last thing to add, we have the production guy here. So who is the dominant player here? Is the VFX company dominant, or are the production guys dominant? Can the production guy say that, okay, you're not doing in this, I'll go to the other guy? Or the VFX company says, like, you have to do it in this term. So this is the broad question which Thank you.
Okay.
See, it's sorry, I'm just answering.
Yeah.
It's always a balance of budgets and the creatives. It's never that there is a domination that a VFX producer has to say this or a VFX company has to say this. It's always a right blend of budget with the creativity. No matter whatever you do, ultimately the economics have to say everything, be it a company or be it from the production when the films shape up. And to answer your question that if AI is increasing and the budgets are squeezing, I think again, with the AI, the efficiency will increase, and so the budgets can be controlled, and I think the quantum will increase. So with that, it's definitely a sizable market that one can look at it. Not like getting into the minor thing of a specific looking into one project that this is a squeeze or that is big.
Yeah. I think right now, Justin did mention, if you remember, it is still some time away, right? A direct implementation of a full-fledged AI solution is not imminent. But how it is going to evolve is slowly and steadily. Like studios like us, we already start looking at the AI assist, right? You look at some of these programs, we have a complex metrics of scenes and which evolves over a period of many months. And then you are trying to see what are all the most mundane and repetitive tasks, which is primarily data driven by looking at some automation to it, right? That's a baby steps you start taking it. And then you probably, because there is nothing that today you can bring in AI and suddenly your efficiency is going to shoot up so that you can make the movies in half of the prices. That's not. While maybe there are some, the production houses who is putting the money might expect that to happen, right? Because everybody is trying to make the most out of less money. But however, the reality is far from it. So the first step is going to be, because even with or without AI, the one thing that we as a studio executives, we are always looking to find efficiencies in the way we do it, whether it is technological solutions, right? Otherwise, there's no need to innovate, right? We could just be doing what we were doing 10 years, 20 years ago. So there is always a demand to find how can we make things better? How can we make more, add more value to what we create? At the same time, how do we make, everyone wants to make a little more profit in everything what they do. So that's where the efficiency is the key here. And so when the demand comes in, irrespective of you are working on a Hollywood, Bollywood, doesn't matter, as long as you are able to give a higher production value for the amount you've been paid, and obviously you are able to squeeze in that little extra margin, which is always a good thing for everyone. All right, does anybody have any other question? Yes, please.
Good afternoon. I'm glad that the topic of the recent disturbances happening in the visual effects was brought up. So the panel was suggesting that the artists should have some kind of alternative, what you say, other, in field of interest, like maybe, in animation or in extra skill to develop. That is for an individual artist. But what is the case of an entire studio? For example, unfortunately, many of us know that ILM had to shut down its Singapore branch. Even recently, Goodbye Kansas studio declared bankrupt. Even though they have their footprint in both movies and gaming, how do you think a studio has to manage such ups and downs? Of course, in this creative field, especially visual effects and gaming, these kind of crusts and troughs we have to experience. But since if you're suggesting artists to have alternative skills to sustain, how do you think a studio on a whole should able to withhold such,
I can answer, but Justin, you want to go? You have a take? Like, how does a studio navigate these headwinds?
I think you're asking someone that is demonstrating why I've never tried to own a VFX company or be a manager or anything. That's a fantastic question, and I don't know. I mean, I think coming from the artist perspective, just being able to, I mean, like when I started back 25 years ago, everyone was generalist, right? Everyone did everything, some better than others, but it was only through several years that we started seeing this evolution into where I just said, I'm no longer a generalist, I am an animator, because that was became a specialist, and that was my strong suit. I think that we are sliding back into that just because of this day and age, and is the fact that if you can handle those other tasks, so I mean, I think anything that you can branch into, if there's areas like either modeling, texturing, or on the other side in terms of compositing, or if you have a knack for Houdini, if you ever have a knack for Houdini, you'll probably always find work. I'm just saying that. But just any areas that you can branch into to help subsidize what your main focus is increases your chances for sure.
And I can add a little bit of another thing. While, say, a studio like ours, Technicolor, if you see, we have 4 different brands under the Technicolor umbrella, even though Technicolor itself is also has been impacted by the strikes and COVID and whatnot, because of the size that we manage. We have a studio which manages a full-fledged Hollywood visual effects. And then we have another studio, The Mill, manages the world's highest volume of commercials and experiences and stuff. And then we have Micros, which does a lot of full-fledged CGI, feature, television, episodic animation, right? And then we have a games division, which handles Technicolor games in the spectrum of all 4. So some of us, we could able to migrate, because now if Hollywood is going into the strike, we could able to offset some of our workforces towards any of those other areas. If tomorrow, if there is going to be a hardship with one of the other industries, then probably that small talent pool can be migrated within it. Again, it is not practical. Not every studios in the world could do all 4. That is not their DNA and stuff like that. But studios like us, that we would be able to manage that to a certain degree. Again, a small percentage, because this is a global phenomena, right? Because when Hollywood goes bust, like this is something I'm sure we all been experiencing for the first time, because back to back, especially after 2020 and then right now within this. So this has been pretty hard. So hopefully things should, at least in the next 20, 30 years, we don't see this, because they made a better deal, hopefully. Yes, please.
So this is specifically to answer your question. So I worked for Blur Studios, which is in Venice, California. And one of the things that Tim Miller always wanted to do was produce his own content, right? So they're a great CGI studio. They worked on Deadpool, many, many films. So they started creating their own content, right? And they started creating, and I don't know if you've seen Love and Robots, but it's basically, on Netflix, they sourced their own footage and worked with other studios to create some amazing CGI. And so I think that's one way to do it, is to basically, if you have, this goes to the other question, it's like technology always changes, but one thing that's the constant that AI doesn't have is passion. Passion to create awesome things like Demon Hunter and everything else. That is the key, right? You can make your own content. Now there are so many ways that you can get out to your audience. So if you have passion for what you do, you can make it happen.
Yeah. And Buddy, I think you need to be, also there's, when you say that it's a multi-talented primary skill sets and the secondary skill sets, when you know that you have multiple things to do in one studio setup, I think there's no one who is going to hit you on the global parameter itself, because there's some or the other requirement which is floating in the VFX. So if you know that you can do this also and you can do that also, I don't think so that the studio will be it never gets affected, in my experience.
All right. Okay. The mic.
Sorry. Hi, my question is to you, Dustin. What is one thing that you would like to take away from the VFX industry here in India? And what is one advice or suggestion you would like to give us in this industry for improvement?
I think, wow, I think the passion. I mean, I love to see how many people are here, right? And how much interest you have in the industry. I mean, it's you know, as someone that's just a VFX geek myself, you know, it's something that I really, really appreciate. And honestly, I don't think I see it as much back home as I do here. Let's see, I guess in terms of what could be new is I think what we were talking about before is also pioneering, right? Developing your own IP. Don't rely just on what we're doing back there and being a part of it, but also pushing forward and creating your own content and stepping forward, which, by the way, I think has happened now too. I mean, you know, I've gotten exposed to so much more than I ever have before, and, you know, absolutely loving some of this stuff too. So I think that, just keep going down that path, keep creating your own content, and I think you guys are going to have a bright future.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, one last question. I think we're doing fine. Yeah. Last one.
Hi, sorry to keep you waiting.
It's all right, go ahead.
So my question is like, this industry, media entertainment industry, so I want to know like how this level, like we all are artists right now, and how Sir Dustin said, like the people who are present here, like he's saying our presence matters. But in the educational level, like the academics level, we don't see media entertainment too much. Like as I grow from childhood to where I was never experienced, like I was good at drawing. I was into movies, but like the world was totally different for me. Like, yeah, you have to do engineering, you have to either do doctor or else. That's the thing was going. Like right now it's the same, but actually I'm from Bhutan, and in that place it's not much. It's like either you be doctor or you be an engineer. That's it. But coming to South India, I experienced that people know like what is multimedia, what is gaming industry is. So I want to know that how you people are encouraging like this media entertainment in the junior level of education. Like, have you have any plans for it? Because I guess most people who are out here, they experience the same thing I did. And there could be more people if the introduction of this academics could be there. Like, I guess a lot of people just couldn't show it because of, they were totally put down because of science and all.
Yeah.
So I want to know that.
No, got it. So I think that's a good question. So there are forums like these. So there are initiatives like these is purely to bring that awareness, right? Like you mentioned, yes, it's partially been started happening better in this part of the country. But there is more and more. There is the Skills Council which is coming in. There is a new AVGC policy. I wish Biren was here to talk about a little bit more. So there are a lot of effort has been taken from the central federal government level to express that, and then mostly it has to be in the private public partnership like these India Joy kind of forums, right? There is Mumbai is very active. There is a lot of forums that happens. Karnataka as a state, Bangalore does a lot of these, and then in fact there is one coming up to a similar scale in the month of January. Chennai and so Tamil Nadu and Kerala started drafting their own policies now around AVGC. So there is quite a bit of awareness. So it cannot be only done by forums like these or just by the government. There is going to be a good amount of partnership, but hopefully the brighter days are going to be with us with the new AVGC policy all the way from the central government. All right. Thanks, everyone. I think we have 10 seconds left.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for this panel. Amazing. Thanks for your time. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Raj.